Did Trump kill the total of trust? Putin is celebrating American submission. This is what we will talk about today. Hello there, I am Elena, welcome back to my channel Enough of Propaganda. Please like, share, subscribe to my videos. Let's make truth available for everyone. We haven't seen each other for a while. It doesn't mean that I stopped supporting Ukraine. On the contrary, I wrote several posts, and in this video I will try to kind of summarize them. And actually I discovered there are posts on YouTube as well where you can put. So some of them include this one is here as well, so you're welcome to check it out. Let's look first at the facts and the recent updates. First of all, Donald Trump, American president, on behalf basically of the United States, since he is a legally elected American president, just stopped the American aid to Ukraine. Yeah, they said it's paused, but it stopped. And despite the fact that I haven't seen confirmation from actual White House, but everybody, include like Poland, is saying that they stopped in the mid-air basically. Even the aid which supposed to be delivered, it already was on the way. Some of it was on the border in Poland. It stopped. All of this happened for many reasons, and we will discuss them. Many people believe wrongly, unfortunately, that it has something to do with that disastrous press conference in Oval Office of the United States, and we will talk about this too. As soon as Donald Trump got into power this year, the aid was continuing. It was stopped, maybe halted only for a few days, but until yesterday it was continuing. And yet, now it stopped. This is a fact. Another concerning thing is that there were conversations and rumors, and according to Reuters, there were some information about possibility of cutting the Ukraine's access to Elon Musk's vital Starlink satellite internet system. But neither Zelensky, Ukrainian president, confirmed that, nor anybody else, and so far, Starlink is still working in Ukraine. Besides, Ukraine and Ukrainian partners, like Poland, are paying for Starlinks. This is a business deal, not charity. So I hope this will continue. But if the United States will stop all the aid, one of the most important things are Patriot systems and intelligence sharing and Starlink. So I sure hope this will continue working. However, after the US under the Trump administration openly sided with Russia twice in the United Nations, marking the 3rd anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, full-scale invasion, and I would say 11 years of the war, this signaled a shift in its stance on this war. The US declined to continue condemning Russian aggression, and this is the fact. And as much as you can see, these are the countries who were against, and among of them was United States of America. In one vote, the United States, along with Russia, Israel, North Korea, and others, voted against a European resolution that condemned Russian aggression, while 93 countries supported it. In another vote, the US abstained after an amendment was made to the US resolution, its own resolution, to include language supporting Ukraine. I have many things to criticize about former President Biden, but even with his forgetfulness, he always remembered who the friends of the USA were and who were the enemies. This is actually my post on Quora. There is the same one on YouTube, so you guys welcome to check it out. This is not just Trump getting down on his knees and licking Putin's boots. This is the United States as a country betraying Ukraine, the truth, international law, democracy, and freedom by siding with the aggressor Russia. Now the US is in a good company with Russia and North Korea. What should we call them now? The United States of Eritrea? Even my subscriber, one of my subscribers, a goat farmer from Africa, knows that Russia is the aggressor in the war in Ukraine, but the president of the most powerful country in the world, the United States, does not. And at his disposal were the best intelligence services in the world, which is the farmer didn't have access to. This is a pro-Ukrainian demonstration in Washington before the State of Union address.
Russia is a
Trump has not only repeated Putin's propaganda word for word, including Putin's lies about the beginning of the war in Ukraine, but has also made the United States stand by Russia in the United Nations. Here's what Trump said. Zelensky is a dictator with 4% approval rating. Russia has not started to fight seriously yet. The Ukrainian army is losing. Ukrainian officials are stealing US aid. And about the actual amount of US aid to Ukraine. Even the Pentagon disproved Trump's claim about US aid to Ukraine. Ukrainian President Zelensky disproved all of this during his recent press conference, which he had in Ukraine, not the one in... and even the one which he had in Oval Office. Anne Applebaum, The Insider, Jake Bro, many independent journalists and I have disproved Russian disinformation as well. I have the whole YouTube channel full of videos proving who is the aggressor and why. The Ukrainian people I met during the rally in support of Ukraine here in Canada on February 24th, 2025 were devastated. They feel betrayed by the United States. What is a serious concern is not only the fact that American President Donald Trump has openly sided with war criminal Putin, but his recent actions, which put in grave danger not only Ukraine, but the USA and the whole world. And I could add my country, Canada. Look what is happening with tariffs. Nobody wins in tariffs wars. Nobody. I created an image that represents the democratic world, which is... I'm not good at images and pictures, but this is how it is. This is the world, the democratic world. It stands on trust. The turtle in the picture. The elephants in the picture are law, private property, freedom of speech, and respect. What happened to it? The huge problem here is not what Trump said, it's what he did and what he is doing now. And words, of course, also matter, but actions speak louder than words. I encourage you to keep in mind, please, that the United States of America is not part of the war in Ukraine. This is not the war in Vietnam or Iraq. American soldiers are not fighting and dying in Ukraine for 11 years. Except for the volunteers. There are a few American volunteers, but they came to defend Ukraine on their own free will and joined the Ukrainian army. One of them actually was killed in Ukraine recently, and they were burying him, Ukrainians burying him with honors in Ukraine, exactly at the time when their president was insulting in the Oval Office Ukrainian President Zelensky. And the United States has only provided aid to Ukraine. And most of this aid stays in the United States. And the amount of it, we will talk about it as well, it's not what Trump said, period. The idea that Russia and the United States can make a deal between themselves behind Ukraine's back and stop the war is ridiculous. Let's look closely at words and actions. Words. By repeating Russian propaganda word for word and openly siding with Russia the aggressor, Trump signed his name and yours, dear Americans, under Putin's lies and his war crimes. This is mighty Russian army in 2025 riding horses, by the way. Let's talk about actions. Trump treated Russia, a third world country, gas station with nukes and a ruined economy, as equal to the United States, giving up the advantage instead of finishing Putin's aggressive and illegal regime when it at its weakest right now. The USA begged loser Putin for a meeting in Saudi Arabia. Neither Ukraine nor European countries who provided as much aid as the United States were invited. Europe actually provided even more, and so is Ukraine, and to help themselves. And according to Trump's words, Ukraine will not be invited to future negotiations. Like we have said in Russia, someone got me married without my presence. Here's recording of 2.5 years of war in eastern Ukraine. You can see the strong difference between the fast Kharkiv counteroffensive by Ukraine in September 2022 and the small and continuous progress of Russia in Donbass. Just think of this. It is not loser Putin who failed to achieve any of his so-called special military operation goals in Ukraine, not a single one, who should have gotten down on his knees and begged Ukraine for peace. But instead, the United States came to a world pariah Putin, talked to him, brought him out of obscurity, lifted him up to their level as a world leader, and proposed things to Putin, revealing all the cards Ukraine may use in future negotiations. The USA was the one who was proposing, and Putin was the one declining the propositions. It looks like Mr. Trump is out of touch with the reality of the situation on the fronts in Ukraine and in Russia, and the catastrophic situation in the Russian economy. And he admitted as much himself, by the way. And the only place where Russia was achieving something, it was Pokrovsk region, and now it's not only stalled, but completely Ukraine getting territory back. The USA negotiating team is a bunch of incompetent people who have never done something like this. Many of them have never experienced, they never was involved in something like this, in conversations, agreements, and peace talks, and so on. They are no match for professional propagandists like Lavrov, who has fooled foreign diplomats and journalists for decades. This is who the United States has in any negotiations. Nazi Jack Posobiec, if I pronounce his name right, Marco Rubio, who once called Putin a terrorist and now changed his tune, sat at the table with Russian terrorists and blubbed nonsense. Way to go, the United States. Recently, Lavrov spat in Trump's face by lying that Russia doesn't bomb Ukrainian energy infrastructure, and bombed it the same day. Even Putin admitted to doing that, as I showed in my videos, like in this one, for example. On top of this, a Russian drone hit Chernobyl right after Trump tried to convince everyone that Putin wants peace. And after all of that, Trump threw United States at Putin's feet in the UN. Words. Trump blamed the victim, Ukraine, for starting the war. This reminded me of a real-life story told me by a Russian psychologist, Galina Ivanova. She was invited by the police to assess a rapist. He justified his actions by blaming the victim. She walked in such a way. That's what he said. When she asked him, did she invite you? Did she wink at you? Did she say, come here? No, she walked in such a way. The United States now is started to calling this war a conflict, according to Reuters. A conflict is someone could have with his wife because she didn't make his toast just right. In the Russian aggressive war in Ukraine, more than 1 million people have died, was badly wounded, or missing in action on both sides. The United States is telling their people not to even call this a war anymore. What will be the next step? Americans are going to call it Putin's special military operation, just like Russians. Actions. The US so-called rare mineral deal, rare earth minerals, has completely changed from the original proposal and has almost nothing to do with rare minerals anymore. So far, the deal they were supposed to sign when Zelensky arrived into Washington was basically offered no security guarantees for Ukraine, which would be discussed in the future. It was in the attempt to force Ukrainian President Zelensky into a bad deal feels like a clip from the movie The Godfather, when the mafia puts a gun to man's head and said, it's either your signature on this contract or your brain, your choice. And the representative of the United States who arrived in Kiev gave Zelensky an hour to sign the deal, but luckily the matter progressed. Zelensky refused to sell his country, and it seemed like the US and Ukraine was supposed to sign the deal finally, which mean really literally nothing. That agreement, there are several videos on that matter explaining everything about that. It was just a lollipop for Trump, so he looked good. Nothing else. It was just an agreement about signing an agreement. But United States managed to screw it up. Trump's attitude towards Ukraine as a colony is offensive, and the claim that their natural resources belong to the United States because they helped Ukraine defend their sovereignty, which the US should do anyway as a democratic, peaceful nation, as promised in the Budapest Memorandum, is disgusting. The Ukrainian people I know personally are deeply upset that their lives and the lives of their loved ones don't matter, that the Americans, Trump and his administration, are talking about them as a deal, like buying oranges at the market. This is exactly what Soviet and Russian propaganda has been telling their citizens for decades. Our life don't matter, and the evil West want to kill us all for our resources. Trump just confirmed the worst fears of the Russians and insulted Ukrainians at the same time. Good luck getting these ideas out of their heads, of the Russians for generations to come. Russians were enemies of the United States in the past and will continue to be ones in the future. And thanks to Trump for confirming every worst Russian fear and propaganda they were fed since childhood, since the USSR. I'm also interested to know why Trump asking Ukraine to pay back for weapons, but not asking Israel or Taiwan to do the same. The United States provides military aid to allies all across the world. Why it is only Ukraine that is expected to pay back funds allocated by Congress and delivered by previous administrations? This has never been done before. It's like someone gives you a gift and then a few days later demands payment for it, or sell you something for one price and later demand much more. This is exactly like Russia dealt with its trade partners for decades. This is what Canada experienced. This is what everybody else experienced. They come into Russia, they build something, and Russia signed the agreement of some sort. And then when everything is built and done, they said, oh, now we want more. You said 50-50, now we want 70-30. And sometimes they agree because it's already invested. Nothing they can do. They can't really pick up the oil well tower or refinery or something and go away. So this is how thugs acting. Even during the meetings with President Macron or British Prime Minister, Trump tried to lie and spread Russian disinformation, but both of them disproved it right away. And Trump wasn't happy because he tried to tell them lies about their country in public. Of course they couldn't admit it. Macron basically even had to put his hand against Trump to stop him from lying about France. And boy, oh boy, that wasn't a big deal. And where was J.D. Vance? To yap and interrupt in the process. Nowhere to be seen. Trump has no problem to call Zelensky a dictator for no reason, but he's afraid to call Putin a dictator, and the whole world saw it. And newest development on that matter was...
Mr. President, do you still think that Mr. Zelensky is a dictator?
Did I say that? I can't believe I said that. Next question.
What a fantastic achievement. The USSR, Russia, and China tried for decades to destroy the US, NATO, and the democratic world, but they failed. Trump did it in a month. The European Union and Canada are now discussing what to do and how to help Ukraine if the US withdrew its aid, as well as how to defend Europe if they can no longer rely on the US. They are also considering how Trump's tariffs wars will impact the world. And they should have thought about it earlier. I agree. But to go behind the back of European Union, NATO, stab them in the back and stop the aid to Ukraine without even telling them, this is a treason. This is betrayal. Treason to the United States and betrayal to the allies. What will be the next humiliation for the United States? Perhaps Trump will return to Moscow for the May Victory Day parade and sit alongside war criminal Putin watching the very Russian troops that committed atrocities in Ukraine march by. I will not be surprised if this will happen. This is not the end, unfortunately. Trump and Musk, the men whom nobody elected, are destroying laws, the checks and balances in the United States every day. Jake Bro, this American former military man and great YouTuber who helped Ukraine a lot, he has great videos on these issues. Meanwhile, Putin is thrilled and already planning how to declare his victory, not just over Ukraine, but over NATO itself.
The Kremlin has ordered Russian propagandists to declare Russia's so-called victory in the war against Ukraine by February 24, 2025, the third anniversary of the full-scale invasion, according to a statement from Ukraine's main Directorate of Intelligence. Moreover, these plans may also include claims of a Russian victory over NATO, as Moscow's propaganda has long framed the war against Ukraine as a conflict with the alliance.
Putin is dangling a carrot in front of Trump's nose, from aluminum to rare earth minerals. Russian Z-bloggers are shocked. Wasn't the war fought and hundreds of thousands of soldiers killed so Russia will not become a colony of the US? Isn't the USA the enemy? What is going on? That's what they are writing in their Telegram channels. If Trump was a private citizen, no problem. He would only ruin his own reputation. But Trump is the president of the most powerful country in the world and a beacon of democracy, until now. So his words and actions mean that Americans will ruin their reputation and trust in the United States as a partner and ally, and that trust is disappearing. If to remove the total from here, everything will collapse. When there is no trust, Western civilization has nothing to stand on. In my opinion, the total is dead. Trump killed it by attacking the neighbors and friends of the United States and rolling over for its enemies. Good luck getting trust back. Your opinion backed by the facts is welcome to be shared in the comments. Here's my word to the Americans. Now Trump is trying to do to you what Putin did to the Russians. He has smudged all of us in Ukrainian blood. He has forced us to share his aggression and his guilt. We all are guilty now, and it doesn't matter whether we voted for Putin or not. Do not join us, please. I have never voted for Putin, but the guilt for Russia's murder, torture, and genocide of Ukrainians, Georgians, Chechens, and many others will stay with me forever. If Trump stops the aid to Ukraine, which he just did, it will make all Americans accomplices in Putin's war crimes. I was hoped it will never happen, but it did. On the bright side, I personally don't blame all Americans. I'm from Canada. I know most Americans didn't vote for Trump. That is not how the system works in the United States. But unlike Putin, Trump was legally elected. The majority of Americans, representatives of both parties, support Ukraine. I visited the United States in January and saw it firsthand. 71% of Americans think Vladimir Putin is a dictator. And no, only 9%. So Americans support Ukraine. But bottom line, silent majority means nothing. Russians didn't even elect Putin. We haven't had a real election in Russia since Boris Yeltsin appointed Putin as his successor. Many Russians didn't want to start the war. Putin didn't even tell Lavrov that the full-scale invasion is starting. Russians didn't even know about it. Did that help Ukraine? No, it did not. It did not help Russia avoid sliding into tyranny either. What to do now is up to you. Americans can either resist tyranny and use their democracy while they still have it, like, for example, these people, or write a letter to their representatives or so on. Or they can turn to the dark side, support the aggressors, fight among themselves, and destroy their wonderful country to please Putin and other dictators. And don't blame me. I'm like a mirror in the Russian proverb. Don't blame the mirror if your face is crooked. You can break the mirror, but you'll still see your reflection in the water. But don't despair. Ukraine will survive. Ukraine still continue fighting. I have already provided information in many of my videos and provide you historical facts about the war in Ukraine, and in this post, for example, as well, from 2014 when the war actually started to this day, about the current situation on the fronts in my posts and in my videos. From February 27th until now, Ukraine continues a series of successful counterattacks in the Pokrovsk direction. This, in February, in the end of February, the armed forces of Ukraine have reclaimed the settlements of Kotlina, and Russia has not only stopped advancing in its main offensive direction, but is also actively losing positions. Putin will lose. Ukraine will prevail, because Ukraine is right about this war. Ukrainians doesn't want to die. This is why Putin will lose. And Trump will be on the losing side if he will continue to back up Russian dictator Putin. It's like in the World War II, if in the end they will just turn around Americans and save Hitler. This is what Trump is doing right now. The latest development was that Zelensky wrote a post basically apologizing for nothing. He did nothing wrong, but he tried to defend his country. This is what it is about. This is the difference between Russia and Ukraine. Russians already brainwashing their children since childhood to die for their country, to fight for their country, and attack other people. So, please help Ukraine, learn the truth, and stay informed. See you later.